Welcome, Archdeacon.
Hello, I'm sorry, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's okay. We know it's what, 1:19 in the morning there?
Just don't remind me.
Thank you for joining us at this hour.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Your Eminence, if you would offer a prayer to begin, and then we'll jump in.
In the name of the Father, the Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God. O God, our Creator, who made mankind to your glory, look upon our presentation, our meeting this evening, and bless it, make it fruitful. Grant, O Lord, peace to the world and to the Ukrainian people strength, that they may continue to live their lives in freedom, to worship you, to have their lives as they want, to be part of the community of all nations. And grant, O Lord, that those of us who are blessed to assist them may be strong and generous in supporting them in all ways. For we offer glory to you together with the Father and the Spirit, now and ever and unto ages of ages.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Many years, Master. You all received via email the short bio of Archdeacon Joseph, but I'm just going to read it for the record here very quickly. Archdeacon Joseph Matusiak grew up in the Chicago area and has spent his whole professional life serving the Orthodox Church. Archdeacon Joseph's experience includes serving as Archdeacon and Secretary to Metropolitan Tikhon at the Orthodox Church in America, the Director of Admissions for St. Vladimir's Orthodox Theological Seminary, Director of Communications for the OCA, Director of the Department of Youth and Young Adult Ministries for the OCA, and the Project Manager Grant Writer for Syndesmos, the World Fellowship of Orthodox Youth. He currently serves as the Missionary Recruitment Officer for the Orthodox Christian Mission Center. He has a BA of Arts and in Literature from the University of Illinois in Chicago and a Master of Divinity from St. Vladimir's. He currently lives in Poland with his wife Nina and 2 children. Welcome, Archdeacon, and again, thank you for joining us at this hour.
David, thank you so much. Thanks for that introduction. And no, thanks for having me. It's really an honor.
So whatever you can tell us about, I know things have changed dramatically since we first arranged this this meeting. And I hear that I think it was Father Alexander Rentel said he had an exchange with you, and there's 100,000 refugees that you know of that have come into Poland. But I know that the topic tonight is about what the program is for this summer, and possibly if you have time about what you plan to do to reinvigorate Syndesmos. Whatever you'd like to tell us tonight, we'd appreciate it. And how can we be of assistance?
Sure. Well, David, thank you so much. And Your Eminence, it's great to see you. It's been a while, but it's really great to see you. And Gail, who I know well, and Nick, great to see you, and the rest of you, good to meet you, and really happy to be here this evening. Of course, me being here came about initially from a conversation that David and I had. I received one of David's emails from OCL just at a moment when I was doing some planning for, as David said, kind of a relaunch, let's say, or of Syndesmos, the World Fellowship of Orthodox Youth, so David and I spoke, and we had the idea for me to come on to speak to you about that work, which I definitely want to do. Of course, when we first arranged this, we weren't facing, as we are now, this crisis, war in Europe, just amazing. Even a week ago, I don't think anybody would have thought we are where we are. As David said, I'm in Poland. I live in the west of Poland, and we are facing a huge humanitarian crisis. Poland receiving, the numbers aren't clear yet, but at least 200,000 have come into Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, over the past few days. I can tell you in the town where I am, which is called Wrocław, which is in the southwest of the country. We're about 2 hours from Prague, 2 hours from Berlin. So if you can, imagine where that is on the map in Poland. Our cathedral here, just to give you some context, is probably 75–80% of the faithful at our cathedral are from Ukraine. Most of them are people who have arrived starting in 2014, when things began. Some of the aggressions, let's say, began in Donbass and in the eastern part of Ukraine. And on a given Sunday, we have probably 400 people at the liturgy at our cathedral, and easily 75% of those are Ukrainians. Today at the liturgy, in fact, I put on my Facebook page a short reflection, just because, the liturgy from Sunday to Sunday is always the same. But this Sunday, it felt just a little bit different. There felt a little bit more solemn, for sure, and a little bit more needful, and you felt the anxiety that was weighing on people, the sadness that was weighing on people, because everybody in our cathedral, is touched very personally by this crisis and this war. The Orthodox Church of Poland is ramping up its efforts to help refugees, especially through its humanitarian aid organization called Elios. And as David mentioned, in fact, yesterday I organized a call between Father Alexander Rentel, Chancellor of the Orthodox Church in America, and the humanitarian aid organization for the church here. And they will be working together, partnering together to provide relief. And the OCA will, in the coming days, launch a campaign and appeal, so people in the US can help financially help that work that's going on. So again, when we began this, we never imagined we would be here, and being in such a place, facing war, on the European continent, a ground war, does affect, for sure, the plans that we have for our international youth event next summer. So let me, at this point, turn to that and give you a little bit of a background and a history of what we're doing. When I first reached out to David, I understood that that maybe recently on a call with OCL, that the idea of Syndesmos, the World Fellowship of Orthodox Youth, came up, or at least a question, where is or what is Syndesmos doing, came up, and indeed the work that we're doing now, came from that question also. Where is, what is Syndesmos doing? If you don't mind, and just to keep myself organized, I'm going to share a slide presentation. Here. Let me put it in the proper presentation mode. So first, if you've not heard before of Syndesmos, the World Fellowship of Orthodox Youth, Syndesmos was the first pan-Orthodox international organization of any type, but a youth organization it was, that was founded in 1953 by people like Father John Meindorf, Metropolitan George Hodor, Archbishop Anastasios, at that time just a young man, all of them young men. And Syndesmos existed from 1953, up until really probably about 2015, as a international fellowship of Orthodox Christian youth. It had at its height of work, it had approximately 175 youth organizations in more than 90 countries. And it worked to network, to connect Orthodox young people throughout the world. It was an organization that worked with the blessing of all of the patriarchs, all the heads of churches, but not under any authority of any of the patriarchs or heads of churches. And this gave it an immense amount of freedom to do the kind of important work of networking youth that it needed to do. And it was extremely successful. Unfortunately, as things happen, even in its own history, from 1953 until around 2015, it wasn't a continuous. They weren't continuously working. There were down periods, where general secretaries or the work itself, just for various reasons, kind of stopped existing. And around 2015, that happened again. With Syndesmos, and from 2015 to the present moment, we can say Syndesmos essentially is defunct, not working at all. I worked, my history with Syndesmos is both as a participant in my late high school, college years. I participated in many international events of Syndesmos, and from 1997 until 1999, I worked as an intern at the Syndesmos office, which was based in Poland, in Białystok, Poland, which is in the eastern part of the country. I worked as a grant writer and a project coordinator. Syndesmos was extremely important in my life, without a doubt. The ability to meet my peers from other cultures, from other countries, to share in orthodoxy, to encourage and inspire each other, in our orthodoxy was such a crucial thing in my life. I'm one of those who met his wife or significant other, wife through Syndesmos, and some of my best friends in the world, are through Syndesmos, and it was really through Syndesmos that I was encouraged to kind of change my educational path and end up going to seminary, and later on ordained, and et cetera, et cetera. As I was getting older, and my kind of career, if you will, in the church, moved on. The Syndesmos, was not so important in my life. It wasn't, something I was focusing on. But especially as I have kids, I have a 17 and 14-year-old, and as they started growing up, I started to ask the question, who is organizing the events? Who is organizing the Syndesmos events that my children will participate in? Where they will meet, their great friends, where they will be encouraged in their faith. So always, because of this, the idea of Syndesmos was always in the back of my mind, always very, very present in a way for me. I'll just get to how we got to the place we are now, which is organizing an international youth event this summer here in Poland. So as you see here on my first slide here, following a decline in the work of Syndesmos over the years, conversations began to find a way to reestablish that work. Syndesmos has a huge alumni base, and people who are involved, tend to keep in touch with each other, talk to each other, and then ask, what has happened. In December 2017, I had the fortune to be with Archbishop Anastasios of Albania at an event organized by the Moscow Patriarchate in Moscow, and His Eminence and I were chatting over lunch one day, and the question of Syndesmos came up. Again, His Eminence was deeply involved in Syndesmos, at all different levels throughout the years. And His Eminence at that time, in 2017, made a suggestion that Syndesmos, a good way to restart the work of international youth work that Syndesmos did, was simply to have a youth festival. I remember his words clearly. He said, well, first he pointed at me and he said, "Look, Joseph, your beard, you're gray. You're not a young person. So let's not kid ourselves here." But he said, but you have the skills and the network and the know-how to bring young people together, and bring them together. And once you bring them together, the Holy Spirit will direct, the way Syndesmos will work in the future. He was very clear. You don't need to start an organization. You don't need to restart Syndesmos. Just bring young people together, and the Holy Spirit will do its work. That was inspiring, of course, but at the same time, I was working for Metropolitan Tikhon in the OCA, and my plate was full with so many things, and there didn't seem to be the impetus really at that time to put on or to start to organize such a youth festival. Fast forward to June 2019, and I was with His Beatitude Metropolitan Tikhon on a pilgrimage to Cappadocia, together with His All Holiness Patriarch Bartholomew. And on that trip, a trip which was glorious in so many ways, but it afforded us a lot of time to spend, a lot of personal time to spend with His All Holiness. And during one of those kind of car trips somewhere, Patriarch Bartholomew, knowing that I had worked for Syndesmos in the past, that's probably the first place that we had met, that I met His All Holiness was through Syndesmos events. He asked me what's happening with the fellowship, why isn't it working? And when I gave him the story, the reason why it wasn't working, the reason why it was kind of defunct, he simply looked at me and said, well, do something about it. You, like Archbishop Anastasio said, you know the people, you have the network, you have the history and the skills, do something about it. Well, when His All Holiness says something like that, you pause to think for a moment and say, well, maybe I should. And what could I do about it? And so that summer started a process of a lot of thought and some small dialogue with, let's say, Syndesmos alumni about what could be done. At that time, let's see, move my slide up. At that time, I started to speak with well, let me say like this. My slides aren't always working properly. Sorry here. Even at that time in July 2019, we were already starting to feel. Sorry here. We're already starting to feel some of the effects of of the troubles within our Pan-Orthodox community, between the Moscow Patriarchate and the Ecumenical Patriarchate, and et cetera, et cetera. And I was reminded on my way back from Constantinople on that trip, I was reminded of one of the founders of Syndesmos, Nikos Nisiotis, and the quote, that was kind of a foundational quote for Syndesmos in the late 40s, early 50s, where he said, "What are we, the Orthodox, going to do to avoid our sickness, namely our indifference to one another?" And as history tends to do, repeat itself. So this quote is more apt now than ever before. And an organization that brings young people together, across all the jurisdictions, across all the patriarchates, is needed now more than ever. And that really struck me, in a strong way. Therefore, I was really encouraged, not only by His All Holiness, and his encouragement to me, but I was really encouraged to use that knowledge and those connections I have to do something. I started kind of planning out in my head and thinking about this, talking with other people during that summer of 2019. But unfortunately, later that summer, and you can see here, in 2019, I began kind of preliminary discussions with the Syndesmos leadership. Between June and August, so that was July 2019, I apologize. Later that summer, my father passed away, and just the loss of him, plus the assuming of all of his work. He was the director of communications for the Orthodox Church in America, and when he passed away, On top of being Metropolitan Tikhon Secretary and personal assistant, I was given the work of being the Director of Communications. So, all of that together was a bit too much for me to then think about, continuing on with recreating Syndesmos. So for about a year, the idea kind of got mothballed and put to the side. However, in June 2020, I kind of that the idea got resurrected, again. And at that time, I started speaking with the Syndesmos co-moderators, or actually they were President and Vice President Jean Raybender and George Al-Haj, both Frenchmen. And we had numerous meetings over that summer to discuss a way to kind of restart the work of Syndesmos. And I didn't want to do something on my own, as Archbishop Anastasios gave the great advice, we should just do a youth event. However, if Syndesmos still existed, it was best to continue to work through them and with them. And so that summer we had a number of meetings, and we drafted a plan to present to the Syndesmos board in September 2022 of a kind of restart, of the fellowship and an action plan. In September 2020. The co-moderator, Jean Raybender, attempts to present the agreed to plan to the Syndesmos General Assembly committee, but the committee decided that it would focus on organizing a General Assembly and not work to establish Syndesmos itself or reestablish Syndesmos itself. That in September 2020, it was the last time that either the board or the General Assembly committee of Syndesmos would meet again. In the fall and winter 2021, myself and Jean Raybender had many phone calls and conversations to discuss the possibility of the future of Syndesmos. And at that same time, I put together a small international team of youth workers and theologians to advise on the possibilities and the ways that we could work to reestablish Syndesmos or simply do that kind of work again. Let's see, slide here. Yes. So it's important, I put together a small group of four young adult, not young adults, sorry, youth workers, from one person from Australia, one priest from Norway, a woman from the Greek Archdiocese in North America, and a fellow from Germany. Most of them are graduates of St. Vladimir Seminary. I knew them from St. Vladimir's and from my work there. But people that I knew who were quite intelligent and open-minded, but also that I knew that would keep me honest and kind of on track. And we had the question, how to move forward. And some of the questions we asked ourselves is, should we simply take over Syndesmos and just begin an organization anew? Because at that time, and continues to be the case, Syndesmos is no longer a legally registered entity. There's no board that exists anymore. There's no mandate for their work. So legally and very clearly, we simply could have take over. But we felt that probably was not the best way. Again, thinking about Archbishop Anastasios' suggestion and not wanting to create any more kind of spectacle or scandal in the church or questions, we decided to not move that way. But we really decided to take on Archbishop Anastasios' suggestion and simply put on an event. In January 2021, with the blessing of Archbishop George of Wrocław, which is my bishop now here in Poland, I contacted Metropolitan Sava for a blessing to organize such a festival. Metropolitan responded with a blessing, directing me to work with a fellow named Alexander Watzlawiuk, who is the youth director for the Church of Poland. Between February and April 2021, I held meetings with almost all of the past presidents of Syndesmos and past general secretaries, as well as youth workers around the world, And from those meetings, a general consensus arose that we really should move forward with hosting a youth event. And at that time, simply call it Wrocław 2022. The idea was to host it here in the city of Wrocław, where I live. And there's a suggestion from one of the past general secretaries, don't call it Syndesmos, don't call it the name of an organization, simply put on a youth festival, calling it the name of the city and the year that it's happening. That seemed like a really good idea until we had to change the name of the city recently, but I'll come to that in a moment. Between May and June 2021, I recruited a team of international students to begin working on the plan for what was then Wrocław 2022. I recruited a group of 20 youth workers and students from around the world. And we had in July 2021, our first meeting of all of those students. In August 2021, the program team for the event held weekly meetings to discuss and plan the program. From those meetings, the themes of music, art, mission, youth work, and ecology were decided. Between September and December 2021, smaller teams began working and developing the programs in each of those themes. Between October and December, the communications team began meeting to put on, began meeting to develop the website and the social media presence. On December 14th, 2021, the website and social media platforms were launched. As I said, we had initially thought to host the event here in Wrocław, which was an ideal place for many reasons. Wrocław is not an Orthodox town. It's has a very small Orthodox community. It's a very very progressive town as Polish cities go, very Western looking. It's a town of many faiths, but it's a town that's absolutely in the center of Europe. Pick a place in Europe, and it's equidistant, to Wrocław. It's a place of meetings. Teze a couple of years ago had a big meeting here. It's really an easy place to get to, but I think most importantly, because it's not an Orthodox town, we felt that that such an event in Wrocław would be in itself kind of a mission to the city, to show the city that there is an Orthodox community here, that it draws young people from around the world. Anyway, in the end, unfortunately, because of both human resources and venue expenses, the Orthodox Church here does not have any facilities. We were looking to have to rent a youth camp, and the cost for that venue was simply kind of out of our price range. So most recently, Metropolitan Sava blessed us, and at his suggestion, blessed us to move the event. That's why it was, like I said, it was a great idea at first to simply call the event the name of the city that it's happening in and the year, which becomes a little bit of a communications headache when you then have to go and change the city, thus changing the whole name of the event. And when the website was Wrocław 2022, and you can imagine, but we did move on and forward, and we changed the event from Wrocław 2022 to Suprasl 2022. Suprasl is on the other side of the country, in the northeast of Poland, and it's the home to the Orthodox Monastery of the Annunciation and an Orthodox Academy, which you see here in the photo. Obviously, the cathedral in the center, and the buildings to the left of the cathedral are the monastery, and the buildings to the right of the cathedral are an Orthodox Academy, which can host up to 85, have accommodations for 85 people, modern lecture facilities with translation capabilities, and it's a really world-class place. The Academy itself went through renovation about 10 years ago, mostly paid for by the European Union, and really is a top quality place. So the monastery itself, the history of the monastery itself dates back to 1499 is its founding, not continuously inhabited since then. And certainly these buildings don't date from 1499, but it's a tremendous venue for us to have the event. Let me talk a little bit about the event itself. The event has, like I said, will focus on youth work, on ecology, on music and arts, and mission work. You can see here one of the teams is youth work. We will focus on having workshops on organizing youth events, practical skills and tools for youth ministry and leadership, and how to reach and engage youth online and through social media. One of our other teams is ecology, where we'll focus on workshops. Focus of the workshops will be to educate, inspire, empower participants with practical and simple tools that can be put into action. At the moment right now, our speakers are Dr. Elizabeth Theotorikov, who's well known, I think probably to most of you, and Dr. Dimitri Oikonomou, also from England, who is also very well known as a speaker and a practical workshop leader in orthodoxy and ecology. At present, she might be known to some of you. Our group on this team is headed up by a woman named Spiridula Fotinis, who most recently worked in the Greek Archdiocese in the Ecumenical Affairs Office, where she worked to put on amongst many other things, to put on a series called Greening the Parish, which was a focus of the Greek Archdiocese in terms of encouraging parishes to think in a more green way. Of course, Syndesmos itself had always been extremely involved in environmental activities, dating back to 1991 when Patriarch Demetrius named September 1st as the Day of Prayer for Creation. In 1995, Syndesmos put out a very well-received Orthodoxy and Ecology Resource Handbook. Starting in 1994, Syndesmos organized the first ecology workshop, which was in Romania in that year, and throughout the 90s organized other such things. And most of its environmental work was focused on what they called spiritual ecology camps, which happened on Mount Athos, on Valam, and I think 1 year in Ordomilia, a women's monastery in northern Greece. So continuing in that tradition, and of course we all know that the climate crisis is something that is important to the church, and being stewards of creation and how we do that well is something important to teach our young people. Let's see. Orthodoxy and arts is another section of the event. Some of the lectures or workshops in that will be from creator to creativity, a human understanding, or understanding human creativity. How can art preach the gospel? The moving icon, an Orthodox approach to cinema, and orthodoxy and theater. In this, one of our speakers is Dr. Davor Zhatlo, who is a young theologian. He teaches at St. Ignatius College in Sweden, as well as the University of Stockholm. And he's quite well known. He's put out a book called The Human Work of Art that he published through St. Vladimir Seminary Press. And he's quite well known in speaking about the theology of creativity. I think especially for young people who not only who are artists, and when we talk about creativity, we don't just talk about the kind of fine arts, but the idea that we are all creative beings. We felt this is or our team felt this is a really important topic, and a way to encourage young people to share their gifts, in the church. The last thing you see on the slide there, orthodoxy and theater. There's a nickname Mojevich Numerum, is a play that was done by a Polish drama theater group based on the life of Saint Maria of Paris. This play will be presented to the participants during the event, and also a workshop will be developed together with the drama group to talk about how can drama, how can theater acting also be a way to share the gospel, to share our talents, and as a way to share the gospel and the tradition of the Orthodox Church.
Deacon Joseph. Deacon
Yep.
Joseph, hi, Pete Zaris here. Forgive the interruption. Thank you very much for sharing what you have so far. Super quick side note: my oldest son, Nicholas, I believe may have been at the last Syndesmos event in Slovakia. I think he was there in 2015, which is sort of really neat and very exciting to see your work. I'm not sure how much longer you had here, and I was just sort of looking at the clock. I know we likely have some questions, so I wonder if I could jump in that direction a little
Sure.
bit. Not the least of which is, and perfectly fair if your answer is I don't know, because I suspect you might not, right? Given the events of the last week or so, what might you expect of your plans to date relative to this summer? So that again, perfectly understandable if you say you're not sure yet. Love to know some preliminary thoughts, but then maybe another one on behalf of OCL is I'd love to know like your anticipation or your thoughts. I think you said the facility could host, I think you said 80 something. How large an event? What kind of how do you expect from around the world? Do you expect that might come together? And then also how might OCL potentially help you?
Peter, thanks, and thanks for. I didn't notice the time myself. You can get lost, especially on Zoom and slides and what have you. So I appreciate that, and I apologize. So yeah, obviously, we had a meeting yesterday with kind of our core team asking this question. And in fact, that was Saturday. On Friday, I spoke to Metropolitan Tikhon and asked, should we go on? And his answer simply was, absolutely, but is going to look the same as we've planned. And his answer also was, now more than ever, with what's happening, with the war, now more than ever, we need to create spaces for young people to meet, across all the churches. So at the moment, we are planning to continue. We do have kind of contingency plans, both in terms of the scope of the event and the venue of the event. So first, the venue. It's quite possible that our venue will get taken up will be needed to house refugees. That's absolutely possible and something we're thinking. If that happens, we do have partners in Finland and in Romania who we're speaking with to possibly simply move the event. And we've not yet set a kind of drop dead date yet. Everything's so fluid, as you can imagine. But we do have the possibility to move the event, and we feel Finland or Romania, probably Finland, would be a better place at the moment. Is a possibility if we can keep the event where it is, but maybe travel is going to become more difficult. Maybe I doubt, but I also doubted a week ago that we would be having a war. I doubt that there will be a security situation in the European Union here in Poland. I hope not, right? And I find that really hard to see. But if it does, maybe people aren't going to want to travel here. The thing is we will then just narrow the scope. We will take it from, then to answer your question, our goal is to have about 100 participants. The location itself will host 85. There is a possibility for a bit of overflow into the monastery in terms of accommodation, and an art school that has dormitory capacity, just a 5-minute walk from the monastery. So our goal is about 100, and we are at the moment reaching out worldwide, to the Orthodox Church in every place where it is, from Japan and Indonesia and Australia to all throughout Europe, Africa, and North and South America. And we have people on our team, from all of those places, and that's where we're reaching out to. So I think, though, if we do have to narrow the scope, we will narrow it in terms of numbers of participants that can come. Maybe it's just a smaller event of 30, but with the same focus and the same forward-looking possibility of gathering young people from around the world to hopefully restart some sort of network of young adults, meeting, working together, praying together, worshiping together.
Could I ask a question?
Please, Bill.
Could I ask a question, please? Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. Does it have to be in Europe? Because I'm thinking of a place like Antiochian Village that might be perfectly suited for something like this. If things just, if chaos persists.
Yeah, it does not have to be in Europe at all. And in fact, it's a great question. There, one of the kind of faults, maybe we could say, in the past with Syndesmos is that it seemed to be very Eurocentric in a way. Antiochian Village, of course, is a great place. I think the only trouble that having things in the U.S. creates with some people is travel, visa restrictions. That's trouble for the European Union as well. I suppose it's probably, equal, but it's definitely something to look out for. I will say, without really wanting to touch the third rail of church politics too much, one thought we had at the very beginning and advice we received from former general secretaries and presidents of Syndesmos, people like Bishop Demetrius Kushel, Father Heikki Huutinen in Finland, and others, was that with the current situation in the Orthodox Church, the schism, having the event on the territory of an autocephalous Orthodox Church, being the Church of Poland, did seem to be a positive way forward. Just so we don't even Metropolitan Salva himself said from the beginning, we don't want this event is for young people, for youth. We don't want it getting mixed up with jurisdictional arguments, with questions of canonicity, of churches and stuff like that. So having that kind of support of an autocephalous church behind it, allows us some, in a way, freedom to do easier what we have to do, and maybe to address some of the hard questions that could possibly come by doing something like this. But I think all the same, Bill, I think it's a great suggestion. And I think if not this summer, Antiochian Village and doing something in the States, this is not going to be, the first time, the first event that we'll have. And in fact, in the past, I can say Syndesmos did have, I believe it was maybe in 94, did actually put on an event at Antiochian Village. But
Archdeacon,
yes.
we have the Autocephalous Church in North America. Huh?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we absolutely do.
And do you expect that most of the participants will be from Europe, or would you have a gut feel on how that's going to shake out?
I hope not. Yeah, I hope not. I really do hope that we have a large international representation, because I don't want it to get stuck as being just a European event. At the same time, it's hard to know, and funding, of course, is a big question. In helping people from abroad, to participate. I will say two things in that quickly. Europe is in many ways like the United States in terms of pan-jurisdictionalism, and as well as having autocephalous churches like Romania and Serbia and Poland, autonomous churches like Finland. But it's really, especially in terms of youth work, there's nothing, for example, in Europe like OCF, Orthodox Christian Fellowship. There's nothing, connecting, the churches, and so when I say Europe is in many ways like the United States in terms of the landscape of Orthodoxy, it's also 20 years behind, if not more. in terms of just the churches not knowing each other, young people not meeting each other. And so there is that important thing, that important idea to really help Europe, I think, kind of, knit itself together a bit more in terms of the Orthodox Church. But again, to answer your question, I really hope, we pray that it is truly an international event.
Archdeacon Joseph, a couple of things. One, I'll expand on sort of a funny part of my son's experience from almost 7 years ago. I'd also say, volunteer a couple of things. One is, we'd love to have some additional conversations with you of how to follow up for getting the word out in the United States into the various jurisdictions. In the case of my son, we didn't know much about Syndesmos before he was invited and sponsored by our diocese, right, in the OCA to attend. I've been texting my son actually throughout this presentation. I wish I had the foresight to actually invite him to listen to you today, but he has been responding to me and he's very excited to see, and I sent the website, and I ultimately told, he sort of made a passing comment, I hope our diocese would sponsor someone. I said, well, Nick, I'm going to sponsor someone from our diocese, right? If no one else will, at a bare minimum, right? As sort of turnabout, because my son went expense free for that trip at age 17, complete with a stopover in Vienna on his way to Slovakia, and complete with a panicked father and mother when he missed his connecting flight in Vienna, and was alone in Vienna for about 9 hours, not knowing what to do, texting his grandparents with, what do I do? Because we said, well, he's stuck, and his grandparents proceeded to give him a distant directed effort to go see various places in Vienna before ultimately getting to Slovakia. It was truly an amazing trip for him, but nonetheless, we'd like to certainly see us promote it here in the United States. To the Antiochian village, where my children all went to camp for many, many years, built awesome location, probably doesn't work in late July because they're probably very booked and overfull themselves for their own camp. But Archdeacon Joseph, if in subsequent years, right, we can help with additional things that might be in the United States, we speaking on behalf of OCL, I think it's a universal sentiment. We would like to help. I think that's a safe thing for me to say on behalf of the organization. So,
thanks, Pete.
However we can.
What can we do, Archdeacon? What can we do as OCL? What would you like us to do? You gave us your time. You got up in the middle of the morning or night, whatever it is over there. What would you like us to do? What was the purpose of your scope?
Yeah, thank you, Your Eminence. Promote the event. Speak about it. In your through your networks, through your dioceses, your archdioceses, et cetera, et cetera. And I will be very upfront. This is an organization. This is an event that we're putting on from ground zero. Sorry, Gail had her hand up and she has to go. I wondered, do you want to ask a question quickly, Gail, or do you really have to leave?
I do have to leave. I have another meeting, but Father Joe, let me just say two things. Number one, it's going to be really important that it not be European. You had mentioned that it tends to be European, and that's the problem. And I don't know how you're going to reach beyond the European community. The second thing I'd say is you might want to think about also partnering with IOTA, which deals with some of these very same circumstances and is trying to have meetings in Europe or elsewhere to keep the costs down because it's so expensive to come to the US. And the third thing, probably this, but Romania is now getting filled up with refugees as well. Heard the Polish border is not the place to go, so everybody's going to Romania now. So Finland might be a better option.
I appreciate those. And with IOTA, one person I've been talking with a lot from the beginning of this is Charles Agilat. Charles really supportive of what we're doing, and he suggests the same thing.
Yeah, Charles is on the advisory board. I'm VP for IOTA, and I'd be happy to have a separate conversation. We were supposed to have a phone call anyway. Let's try to set that up. Okay.
Thanks, Gail. It's good to see you.
I'm sorry I have to go, everybody.
No, I know.
Gail.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
So back to your question, Archbishop Vladika. We're starting from zero, meaning we have no organization behind us. I have been working on this, as my wife calls it, it's my, it's my hobby, and I work full time for OCMC, and every other hour of the day I put into this. We have no funding. We have recently applied for 2 grants, one from the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and one to the European Union through their what's called Erasmus program, which is a youth initiative. And in fact, this week we were to begin a fundraising campaign. I've collected a database of about 2,000 names. Those are people who were involved in Syndesmos in the past, and people who I know are quite dedicated to the idea of youth work and networking youth. We, as I said, intended to launch that. This is not the right week to launch that fundraising campaign, for sure. And there are other great needs in the world, but our great need is funding. I can tell you right off the bat, our budget is about 30,000, and for that 30,000, we will be able to offer 50% scholarship to all participants, as well as cover all of our other costs. The participation fee that we're looking at is about $150, $175. I think 150 we set it at, $150. And so, financial backing and gifts of support, are something that we're really looking, that we need. I'll just be straight about it. There are a few people in the States that I'm talking with. Charles Adjlat is one, as I just mentioned. Charles and I have been talking since the beginning of this kind of conception 2 years ago, even. And some others that I'm working with, hopefully to provide some funding. The 2 great needs is simply promoting it within your networks, letting people know that it's happening, and we're really looking for kind of the top young people who are in leadership positions or have strong leadership qualities, right? And so promoting it. And helping us to fund it. To put it simply, I will note, and you can see on our social media, one of the OCA monasteries in Calistoga, I think the Monastery of the Assumption in Calistoga, California, they're really dedicated to what we're doing, and the monastery themselves have put up $2,000 in scholarship funds to help young people from the United States to participate. I would hope that at least. As Pete, as you said, and the OCA in 2015, I think, did the same to Syndesmos project in Poland. Each diocese contributed to helping one young person from their diocese to participate. We're looking for all kinds of creative ideas in helping us to get this off the ground, and because it's needed. We can all agree it's absolutely needed. Yeah, Bill.
So it seems to me, and I'm just kind of thinking that a target of 100 kids is kind of small, and I don't know if it seems like an opportunity like this, like Peter's son jumped all over it, and it seems like we could get more, and maybe I'm dreaming, because that's what I always think about people coming to OCL meetings even, but it seems like, out of the world, we ought to be able to get 300 or 400, maybe not, but I've never done this, don't know much about it.
Yeah, that was kind of initial thoughts were, that's what's needed, right? We really, and there were Syndesmos festivals in the past that had 300-400. One thought that we had was because there's been no continuity, in terms of youth work. There's no leadership base anymore, right? When I participated in Syndesmos, I had participated in events, over a couple of years. I had kind of been trained, in kind of leadership skills, and then I moved on to coordinating and events and organizing them and what have you. Because we have that break of continuity, over at least 5-6 years. We don't have that network, of young adult leaders, and so for a number of reasons, because we don't have the funding, we're not backed by some organization to put something for 300 on. that's just scary for me. I'll be honest. It's just totally scary. And the rubric I'm working under right now, and I feel the positive pressure is that we've done so much work, we've put ourselves out there so much. We don't have the option at this point to fail. We just don't, and we can't. We've been encouraged by too many important people in the church. We cannot fail. But for both of those reasons, we want to keep it small. For the first reason, we really want this to be an event that, let me say it like this. If this summer we put on an event with 100 young people from every continent, and they come together, they have a great time, they exchange some Instagram accounts, and they exchange some email addresses if young people still do that, email, and they get on. That sounds like a success. That for me will not be a success. We're not looking to put on a one-off project. We're looking to build a network, and so we want to bring young people together who will go back to their homes, and create that multiplier effect, who will not only learn something, at the event and be empowered with some tools, to be leaders in their local community, but even more will encourage other people to become part of this global network of young people, encouraging each other in their faith, getting beyond the politics of the church, and so on and so forth. And so to really create that kind of feeling, that kind of group of leaders, smaller is better at this point, I think you can appreciate. But we want every person who leaves to talk to two people, and next year bring back, how it goes, right?
That makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Deacon Joseph, I'm going to need to go before too long myself here, although it's not nearly as late as it is for you. I might ask for David to connect us directly, because I'd love to talk to you at length one-on-one, perhaps on some additional ideas that I have. I love Bill's sentiment on sort of the larger, maybe it would be interesting to see, let's see if we can help them double it year over year for the next couple of years. So 100, 200, 400 gets you there in a couple of years. Maybe that's something.
Yeah, particularly since there's no infrastructure in place. I get it that, you're starting from right from the get-go. And
I'm sensitive to your notion of being outside of the politics, particular of some of the things in the United States. I can appreciate that and respect it, would want to sort of sustain that. The thought that I would have, though, that I'd love to talk to you more about, if we can stay to that spirit while try to finding a path to come up alongside you, if you will, on some of the missions of OCL, which here in the United States is about driving towards pan-Orthodox unity. How do we put a positive message forward on that, right? And doing things with the youth, crossing those jurisdictional boundaries. So the things that I'm thinking of, how do we, as you support this global youth community, right? Can we see and push on a pan-Orthodox United States representation, or America's representation, to try to show the world, right, that what can be done when we strip down the boundaries of these political jurisdictions, which we all know and we advocate for, just has to happen here. So I'd like to do some more brainstorming of how we can help within your mission of not getting too bogged down into the politics. Whereas, can we actually embrace that and push it forward to actually show the world this is what you have, what can happen for youth when you strip down the politics and you come together as one unified church. I would love to do some more brainstorming there, and how we can align our collective missions. And very interesting to me.
I think Alice had something to say. Alice, you were going to say something.
No,
yes. Hello.
Thanks.
Hello.
Thanks,
hello. This is Alice Copan. You can hear me, but you can't see me. But I'm wondering, Father, if you are aware of the rekindling of y'all in the United States. They were dormant. This is part of the Greek Orthodox Church, but they're talking pan-Orthodox, and they were dormant, what, maybe 12, 15 years, and y'all was rekindled two or 3 years ago, and it's fascinating to see the interest that they have. They've had 2 annual meetings during Labor Day, and the first one, I think they had 23 cities represented, and they're starting all over again. And that would be a good contact as far as reaching out with the young adult groups that are forming again. Y'all was formed originally, I think, around early 1980s, and was pretty lively for a while and then collapsed. And it's being rekindled again. And my godson was the spearhead behind it.
Well, Alice,
So
thanks
that-
for letting me know that. I mean, y'all, each metropolis, y'all in the past was members of Syndesmos. I remember, I'm trying to think of who I worked with, Tom
Sure.
Canellis.
Way
in the
back.
past. Yeah.
Goya and Ciola.
Yeah,
Way
yeah,
back.
absolutely, yeah. So thanks for cluing me into that. I didn't realize that they were, and there's that history. The one thing that that I think we can all appreciate, and I know it's getting late, so now it's getting early for me. It's getting late for you. Is one thing that kills me, in the church is our lack of continuity. As the generations go on, we just, don't seem to build upon, what came before us, right? And that's normal, to an extent in organizations, right? And with new generations and youth, but we have such a great continuity. And when speaking about unity, especially, and Syndesmos' own continuity, we think to Father John Meindorf. One awesome thing about our event this summer is Father John Meindorf's 30th anniversary of his passing will happen during the event. It's the 22nd of July. And that day, which will be the second to the last day of our event, we're dedicating the whole day to Father John Meindorf, to his vision of unity, to what he spoke about, and to really talking about. Now, how to put that in practice, and what I want to share with you, like I said, if this event is just one event, it goes well this summer, and that's great. Young people come. That not being a success. Yes, what is success? We're talking now, while we're also talking about planning this program. We have to begin thinking now what comes after it. Yeah, we have to plan even more for what comes after it than we're planning for it itself, right? And recently, what we're planning, I think we've finally come to the idea is, we don't want to start an organization. Syndesmos got bogged down. It was of its time, got bogged down in parliamentary UN type structures, president, vice president, general assembly, regional representatives, constitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in Syndesmos, there's always kind of 2 Syndesmoses: the Syndesmos of the structure and general assemblies, and the events that it did. We want to be more nimble, and I think the way of the world is to be a bit more nimble and fluid. What we're thinking now, though, is we will create a leadership institute, and going from this forward, we'll have the event this summer. We'll take the cream of the crop from that event and put on a few leadership institutes. It's one thing that's also missing for young people these days within the church is how to be leaders. Yeah. Something that Syndesmos did really, really well in the 90s was leadership institutes, and move on, bring young people together, train them to be leaders, and then put on programs through which those young people who are being trained could practice their leadership. So the events would themselves be practicums, as you will, for leadership. So and in that way, I mean, unity is absolutely starts to be created and becomes a shows the rest of the world that our young people can get together. And when young leaders get together, Metropolitan Anthony of Soros of blessed memory once said within Syndesmos, your job is not to talk about the problems of the church. You always be kind of enticed to do that. Your job is to come together as young people, to encourage each other in your faith, to become leaders, and in the future, you'll be in a position where you can answer the questions of the church yourself. Yeah. we have to have a place where young people meet across jurisdictions. They will end up being, show me a metropolitan or a patriarch in the church, and I'll show you how he's connected to Syndesmos, right? They all met. Patriarch Bartholomew and Patriarch Kirill first met in Syndesmos. There needs to be this place where young people, outside of all of the, pardon the language, crappy stuff that happens in the church, need to come to a place where they simply meet each other and enjoy each other's presence, so that later when they are leaders, they have that foundation, of brotherhood, to build from. And that's really part of our great vision, of what we're doing. So, yeah.
Maybe I missed this, but what is the role of Patriarch Bartholomew in all this?
So, at the beginning, Alice, I said, I'm not sure if you were on, His All Holiness encouraged me on this path to recreating Syndesmos, to doing something, as he said, do something about the fact that Syndesmos doesn't exist. Throughout this process, I've kept His All Holiness, in the loop, as it were, if I can say I kept the patriarch in the loop on something. But he's definitely been apprised of what we're doing. He supported it, for sure. He has, kind of directed Archdeacon John Christoph Gies to be in contact with us and to offer their support. So, I think I can say that we work with his blessing. We have the support of the ecumenical throne, and I think beyond that, that's kind of exactly what we want. Like I said before, I think we want to continue in that same kind of model that Syndesmos worked in, where it worked with the blessing of all the patriarchs, but not under the authority of any of them. Of course, we will approach our work with respect and of all the patriarchs and their thrones, but we want to be able to do the work we have to do and to work with all of the churches around the world, being a bit not, I don't want to say independent or para in any way, but kind of working with the blessing, but not under is really an ideal way for such an event to take place. So I think simply to answer your question, it's really with his blessing.
Did you see what?
I've got to leave. I apologize. Yeah. I got to leave.
Thank you, everybody.
Archdeacon Joseph, thank you. That was very enlightening, and I'd love to see. I'd love to see this thing explode, because God knows we need it. So,
yeah, I also have to leave. I appreciate the presentation. I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. I don't want to kick anyone else off, but I think a lot of us need to step away. But thank you again. I would very much like to directly follow up with you. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everybody. Well, thanks for your time, everybody, and thanks for staying up late, and thanks for having me. And I look forward to further conversations and working together. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for getting up early.
No problem. Thank you, Bill.
Staying up. Thank you,
yes,
Archdeacon Joseph. So I'll be in touch and get your contact information, whatever you're comfortable to share with members of the board, and we'll move on from there.
All right.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and hope you can get some sleep.
Indeed.
God bless.
Thanks, David. Argo, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks.
Right. Thanks. Bye-bye.